If you've ever been asked what's the largest predator in the ocean, you probably said great white shark. Maybe orca if you're feeling fancy. Or if you really know your stuff, the sperm whale. And sure, those are all massive apex predators that absolutely deserve respect. But here's the thing, there's something lurking in the deepest, darkest parts of the Southern Ocean that makes all of those look like amateurs. Something that most people have literally never heard of, despite it being potentially the largest invertebrate predator to have ever existed on Earth. I'm talking about the colossal squid, and no, that's not just a dramatic name someone made up. It's called colossal for a very specific reason that has nothing to do with length and everything to do with something far more terrifying. And before you say, wait, aren't giant squids the big ones? Well, that's exactly the problem. Because what we're about to get into is how science basically got the naming backwards, and how this deep-sea nightmare is in a completely different league. Now, when most people think of massive squids, they think of the giant squid. Architeuthis ducks, if you want to get technical about it. And that makes sense because giant squids have been part of ocean folklore for centuries, showing up in everything from ancient sailor tales to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea to that one memorable scene in Pirates of the Caribbean where the Kraken absolutely demolishes Jack Sparrow's day. They're the ones with the reputation, the cultural cash, the name recognition. They're basically the Beyoncé of terrifying sea creatures. Everyone knows them, everyone respects them, and they've earned their spot at the top. And sure enough, giant squids are legitimately enormous, with the longest confirmed specimen measuring about 13 meters or 43 feet from the tip of its mantle to the end of its tentacles. That's longer than a school bus, about as long as a humpback whale, and significantly longer than anything you'd ever want to encounter while swimming. Scientists have studied them for over a century. We've got multiple specimens preserved in museums around the world, and in 2004, researchers finally captured footage of one alive in its natural habitat, doing its squid thing in the deep ocean. In other words, we know these things are real, we know they're huge, and we've got the receipts to prove it. So, when scientists discovered another massive squid species in 1925, initially from a couple of tentacles found in a sperm whale's stomach, because of course that's how we discovered deep-sea creatures, just casually dissecting whale digestive systems. They were like, oh cool, another big squid. They named it Mesonychoteuthis hamiltoni, which roughly translates to Hamilton's middle claw squid. A name so aggressively boring that even the scientists who came up with it were probably falling asleep mid-pronunciation. So they started calling it the colossal squid instead. At first, this seemed like maybe overcompensating a bit. I mean, you already have a giant squid, so calling another one colossal feels like when movie sequels just keep adding bigger adjectives to sound more impressive. Fast and Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, Fast 5, Furious 7, and eventually we'll probably get The Fastest and Most Furious, Galactic Drift, or something equally absurd. It seemed like marketing more than actual science. Like someone in the taxonomy department was trying too hard to make this new squid sound cooler than it actually was. Except here's where things get interesting. And by interesting, I mean scientifically bonkers in a way that will make you question everything you thought you knew about the ocean. When scientists finally got their hands on intact colossal squid specimens, which didn't happen until 2003 because these things live so deep and so remotely that finding one is basically like winning a lottery, where the prize is a creature that looks like it crawled out of HP. Lovecraft's nightmares. They realized the name wasn't exaggeration at all. In fact, if anything, like colossal was underselling it. Because while the giant squid is longer, the colossal squid is bigger. As in, significantly more massive, more heavily built, more absolute unit of a creature in every measurable way except pure length. The largest colossal squid ever caught weighed an estimated 495 kilograms or 1,091 pounds. To put that in perspective, that's heavier than a grand piano. That's heavier than 2 adult lions combined. That's more than twice the weight of the largest giant squid ever recorded, despite being a few meters shorter. This thing is built like a tank that decided to grow tentacles and develop a serious attitude problem. But the weight difference is just the beginning. Because what makes the colossal squid truly different isn't just that it's heavier. It's that it's equipped with biological weapons that make the giant squid look like it brought a pool noodle to an arms dealer convention. But here's where things get weird, and I mean genuinely scientifically weird. in a way that breaks your brain a little bit. Despite being potentially the largest predatory invertebrate on Earth, we've only ever found about 12 complete specimens. Ever. In the entire history of humans studying the ocean. 12. For context, we've found thousands of giant squids. Thousands. We've been studying them since the 1850s. We've got them preserved in museums all over the world. We've filmed them in the wild. We've dissected them. We've basically written their entire biography and posted it on Wikipedia with citations. The colossal squid? We didn't even see a complete adult specimen until 2007 when New Zealand fishermen in the Ross Sea accidentally caught one while fishing for Antarctic toothfish. And by caught, I mean this absolute monster grabbed onto their bait at a depth of over 2,000 meters or 6,600 feet. That's deeper than 5 Empire State Buildings stacked on top of each other, which is a completely unhinged way to measure depth, but really helps visualize just how far down we're talking. And the fishermen basically had to have a several-hour tug of war to get it to the surface before it died from the pressure change. The whole time, these guys were probably seriously reconsidering their life choices and wondering if accounting school was still accepting applications. And this is where the first major paradox kicks in. This squid lives so deep and so remotely that we basically never see them, yet they're absolutely massive apex predators that need to eat constantly to maintain their ridiculous body mass. The average colossal squid needs to consume roughly 30 to 50 kilograms, or 66 to 110 pounds of food per day just to maintain their weight. That's like eating 200 McDonald's. Big Macs daily, except instead of Big Macs, it's other terrifying deep-sea creatures. And instead of developing health problems, you develop rotating meat hooks. But we'll get to that. So, the question becomes, what exactly is down there for them to eat, and how the hell are they catching it in the pitch-black depths where visibility is essentially zero, and the only light comes from bioluminescent creatures that look like underwater rave attendees? Well, scientists have dissected the few specimens we have, and it turns out colossal squids are primarily eating Antarctic toothfish, also known as Chilean sea bass, if you've ever ordered it at a fancy restaurant and paid $40 for a piece of fish the size of your palm. These fish themselves can grow to over 2 meters or 6.6 feet long and weigh up to 130 kilograms or 287 pounds. So we're not talking about the squid snacking on tiny krill or whatever. They're hunting fish that are individually larger and heavier than most adult humans. But it gets better. Or worse, depending on whether you're the squid or the fish. See, Antarctic toothfish are these slow-moving lethargic creatures that live in near-freezing water between 1,000 and 3,000 meters deep. They're not exactly zippy. They're basically the sloths of the deep sea, just vibing in the darkness, living their best life, probably assuming nothing that massive could possibly sneak up on them in an environment where you literally cannot see your own fins in front of your face. And yet the colossal squid, despite being over 3 times their size and shaped like what would happen if a torpedo swallowed a beach ball and then grew tentacles, somehow manages to catch them regularly. Not occasionally, not as a rare treat, but as their primary food source. We know this because when scientists examined the stomach contents of captured colossal squids, they found beaks from Antarctic toothfish. Lots of them. Along with, no joke, metal hooks from fishing lines, which suggests these squids are either incredibly bold, incredibly hungry, or incredibly stupid. And given that they've survived as a species in one of the harshest environments on Earth for millions of years, we can probably rule out stupid. Okay, so you're probably wondering, how does something that weighs as much as a grand piano catch anything in pitch black darkness at depths where the pressure would turn a human into a meat smoothie? And here's where the colossal squid goes from, oh, that's a big squid, to, wait, what the actual hell is wrong with evolution? Let's talk about the eyes. The colossal squid has the largest eyes of any living animal on Earth. Period. Not the largest eyes relative to body size. The largest eyes full stop. Each eyeball is approximately 27 centimeters or 11 inches in diameter. That's roughly the size of a basketball. An entire basketball. This creature has eyes literally as big as basketballs just casually sitting in its head, like that's a normal thing that should happen in nature. And these aren't just comically oversized for show either. These eyes are specifically designed to function in an environment with almost zero ambient light. They can detect the faintest bioluminescence from up to 120 meters or 400 feet away, which in the deep ocean is basically like having night vision goggles designed by aliens with an unlimited budget. The eyes are so sensitive that they can pick up the slight disturbance in bioluminescent plankton caused by something as small as a fish swimming past. So basically, if you're an Antarctic toothfish just minding your own business and you accidentally bump into some glowing plankton, you've basically just turned on a spotlight, advertising your exact location to a monster with basketball-sized eyes that's been watching you from farther away than a football field is long. Sweet dreams. But here's where things get genuinely nightmarish, and I mean that in the most literal, Lovecraftian, tentacles in your nightmares kind of way. Remember when I mentioned the colossal squid has biological weapons? Well, I wasn't being metaphorical or exaggerating for effect. See, giant squids have suckers on their tentacles, fairly standard squid equipment like teeth for mammals or turn signals that BMW drivers never use. These suckers have small serrated rings around the edges to help grip slippery prey. Useful, functional, kind of gross if you think about it too hard, but nothing that would keep you up at night. Colossal squids looked at that design and apparently said, nah, we need something that causes permanent psychological trauma. Instead of just serrated suckers, each of the colossal squid's tentacles is equipped with sharp, swiveling hooks. Not metaphorical hooks, not hook-like structures. Literal rotating hooks made of chitin that can be up to 25 millimeters or 1 inch long. And these aren't fixed in place. They can rotate on a ball and socket joint, similar to how your shoulder works, allowing them to swivel 360 degrees and dig into prey from literally any angle. Each tentacle has dozens of these things, and each hook can independently rotate to find the best angle to sink into flesh. Let me paint you a picture here that will absolutely ruin your day. You're an Antarctic toothfish. You're swimming along in the complete darkness doing whatever it is toothfish do, and suddenly you feel something wrap around you. Before your fish brain can even process what's happening, dozens of rotating hooks sink into your flesh from multiple angles simultaneously, and you're being dragged through the freezing water toward a beak. And yes, squids have beaks, because nature looked at giant creature with tentacles and thought, you know what this needs? A parrot mouth. That's roughly the size of a human fist and powerful enough to slice through steel cable. Actually, let's talk about that beak for a second because it deserves its own moment of horrified appreciation. The colossal squid's beak has been measured exerting bite forces of over 100 newtons, which scientists have confirmed is strong enough to cut through Kevlar. You know, the material they make bulletproof vests out of? The stuff designed to stop bullets? Yeah, this squid can bite through that like you bite through a Kit Kat bar. And here's the real kicker. You'll tell the truth with real triggers. The absolutely bonkers cherry on top of this nightmare sundae. Despite their massive size and weight, colossal squids can move in sudden, explosive bursts of speed thanks to jet propulsion. They suck water into their mantle cavity and blast it out through a siphon, achieving speeds estimated at up to 2.3 meters per second in short bursts. That might not sound particularly fast until you realize that's about 5 miles per hour, which is Olympic-level swimming speed for humans. Except this thing weighs half a ton, has basketball-sized eyes, and is covered in rotating meat hooks. It's basically a heat-seeking missile designed by a committee of horror movie directors, and it lives in a place where we can't see it, can't reach it, and have only accidentally encountered it about a dozen times in human history. Now, you might be wondering why we know so little about an animal this massive and terrifying, and the answer is both simple and frustrating. They live in possibly the most inhospitable environment accessible to humans. The Southern Ocean around Antarctica isn't just cold. It's cold, dark, deep, stormy, and so remote that even getting research vessels there requires months of planning and costs millions of dollars. It's basically like trying to study wildlife on Mars. Except Mars doesn't have waves the size of apartment buildings actively trying to kill you. The colossal squid specifically seems to prefer depths between 1,000 and 2,000 meters, which is deep enough that the pressure would crush a human instantly. We're talking about 100 to 200 times atmospheric pressure, or roughly equivalent to having 50 elephants standing on every square inch of your body, and the temperature hovers right around 1 to 2 degrees Celsius or 30 to 36 degrees Fahrenheit. It's so cold that their blood has evolved antifreeze proteins just to keep functioning, which is simultaneously really cool from a biochemistry standpoint and absolutely terrifying. When you remember, this is the same creature with the rotating hooks and basketball eyes. And here's where things get ecologically fascinating in a way that completely reframes everything I've just told you. Despite being this massive apex predator with nightmare weapons, the colossal squid is itself prey for an even larger predator, the sperm whale. Scientists know this because sperm whales have been found with colossal squid beaks in their stomachs, and more tellingly, with massive circular scars on their heads and bodies from those rotating hooks. Some of these scars are over 30 centimeters or 12 inches in diameter, which researchers have described as looking like systematic torture marks, because apparently marine biologists have a flair for the dramatic. But here's what's wild about this. The ratio of scars to beaks suggests that sperm whales hunt adult colossal squids regularly and successfully, yet we've only ever caught a dozen complete specimens ourselves, and most of those were either dying or already dead when found. This actually means something genuinely mind-blowing. There's an entire ecosystem of giant creatures hunting each other in the depths of the Southern Ocean that we barely understand. We're not talking about a handful of rare specimens scattered across the ocean. We're talking about enough colossal squids to support a healthy population of sperm whales that specialize in hunting them. Some researchers estimate there could be tens of thousands of colossal squids down there, maybe hundreds of thousands, all just existing in the darkness while we go about our lives completely unaware, occasionally ordering their favorite food as an expensive dinner entree. And get this. Because colossal squids live in such deep, cold water, their metabolism is incredibly slow compared to shallow water squids, or basically any predator that lives in warmer environments. This means they can survive on relatively little food by giant predator standards, but it also means they grow very, very slowly and probably live for a surprisingly long time. The current best estimate is that they might live for several decades, though we genuinely don't know for sure because we've never been able to track one throughout its entire life. The oldest specimen we've examined was estimated to be around 10 years old when it was caught, but scientists think it might not have even been fully grown yet. The implications of this are kind of profound when you actually stop and think about it. There could be colossal squids swimming around right now that are older than most people reading this, that have never been closer to the surface than the Burj Khalifa is tall, and that will live their entire lives and die without a single human ever knowing they existed. They're apex predators, the size of compact cars with basketball eyes and rotating meat hooks for hands, and to us, they might as well be invisible. So let's circle back to that opening question. What's the largest predator in the ocean? Well, if we're talking about the biggest in terms of sheer mass and hunting capability, if we're talking about the most well-armed and genuinely terrifying, it's not the great white shark that gets all the movies made about it. It's not even the orca with its sophisticated hunting strategies and cute SeaWorld shows. It's this deep-sea nightmare with eyes the size of basketballs and a personality like a medieval torture device gained sentience and decided to take up professional hunting. The colossal squid is basically proof that the ocean still has massive secrets we barely understand. That sometimes the thing that should be most famous gets completely overshadowed by something with better PR, and that nature can create something more bizarre than anything humans could imagine, even if we tried. The giant squid got all the publicity, all the movies, all the cultural recognition and dramatic crack in mythology, while its bigger, meaner, more heavily armed cousin has been down in the depths this whole time, just quietly being more terrifying than anything Jules Verne or H.P. Lovecraft could have dreamed up. And honestly, maybe it's better that way. Maybe some things should stay in the deep, dark parts of the ocean where we can't casually reach them, and they can't casually reach us, just existing as a reminder that we don't actually know everything about this planet we live on. That there are still places where massive predators hunt in complete darkness, using biological weapons that seem designed by a committee of evolution's most unhinged members, and that these creatures have been doing this for millions of years without our knowledge or permission. Although I will say this, the next time you're at a nice restaurant enjoying some Chilean sea bass and feeling fancy about your $45 entree, just take a moment to remember that somewhere in the pitch-black depths of the Southern Ocean, there's a half-ton creature with basketball-sized eyes and rotating hooks that considers that exact same fish a light afternoon snack, and it's probably having a much easier time catching it than you are affording it. Thanks for watching, and until next time, maybe appreciate that some nightmares are considered enough to stay in the deep ocean where they belong.